the kind of ability Zard, which we say that now, but it's just going to be basically a fire toolbox deck.
Yes, of course. It's definitely transitioned away from just being focused around that Charizard and Reshiram and Charizard GX card, and plays a whole host of different fire type attackers. You know, basic Pokemon, GX Tag Team, V Pokemon, everything bundled up into one deck. So it's really exciting.
But then, of course, I think even more exciting, especially for you, is Yasuyuki's deck, where we talked about it a little before, but it is going to be that kind of Slumbering Forest mill deck. Uses Belelba, and it was kind of the original list before the Chinchino version.
Yeah, and so we're seeing the prize cards of both players there, and I think that Belelba being in the prize cards there really shows you what kind of deck he's definitely playing, and kind of signpost for that. But here we go, players about to kick off the match. And looks like it'll be Yasuyuki starting us off with a Girafarig in the active spot. That's certainly not a card that we have seen this tournament.
And you actually see him breathe a sigh of relief. His hand was very hampered by this no supporter turn 1 rule, and drawing that Slugma off the top of the deck means he will not have the chance of just losing next turn.
And it looks like he just attaches a fire energy and has to pass. So really awkward start there, not able to find more basic Pokemon, not able to kick off his strategy.
Oh, speaking of awkward starts here, though, Gustavo's hand is not looking too hot. It's just another attach, and then I think we'll see a burn here. Oh no, the Spinning Pokemon can't attack, which is pretty good, but Get Lost is not very useful when your opponent doesn't play anything.
And so for those tuning in, this is not how these decks usually run, that's for sure. We're usually seeing your acceleration of fire energy from the side of Gustavo Wada. We're usually seeing a bit more of a setup from the side of Yasuyuki, but you know, giving some love to some of those cards that we don't usually see. But then we see Cynthia and Caitlin to draw 3 cards for Yasuyuki.
Oh, there it is, the third card off that Cynthia and Caitlin.
Zacian V, the poster boy for this this set, I think.
Yeah, its Intrepid Sword ability is going to allow Yasuyuki to be able to just continue drawing cards and get his setup going, and really going to force Gustavo to try to draw something off the top of his deck here.
And there we see Yasuyuki has actually drawn into that Mareep, so he'll be able to start putting Gustavo Wada's Pokemon to sleep next turn. Gustavo looks like he's retreating that Vulpix, going to play a Giant Hearth.
Yeah, so this is pretty great. The retreat and then the Giant Hearth discarding another fire. He'll be able to use Victini V's attack Spreading Flame to charge up the Turtonator or the Vulpix if he chooses to.
Looks like he's searching through his deck. At a quick look, obviously he saw pretty quickly the cards that he wanted to see in there. Just going to shuffle up and play. We're expecting to see that Flickering Flame attack there, putting down the 3 energy cards.
Yeah, and it's very important to actually get those energy back into play because of the threat of Girafarig on the opponent's side of the field.
So Yasuyuki here, he does get down that Mareep.
Oh, there's one of your favorite cards, Slumbering Forest.
Nice synergy with that Mareep there. Mareep being able to put the opponent's active Pokemon to sleep, and Slumbering Forest forces the player to flip 2 coins. And if either of them are tails, they stay asleep. But Yasuyuki here, sort of searching through his deck. This is the kind of deck that has a lot of different pieces to it, so he's probably having a look and thinking, what exactly have I got prized? What tools do I have to work with here?
Well, he's eyeing down that Oranguru from Sword and Shield. Its Primate Wisdom ability, being able to put a card from his hand onto the top of his deck and take the card from the top of his deck into his hand. And it's just an insane combo with Smooth Over from Macargo.
Yeah, it looks like he's got that combo now. So Macargo Smooth Over is now down on the field, as well as that Oranguru with the Primate Wisdom. Looks like it might hit the bench as well.
Bench, Smooth Over.
And now we have the setup that Yasuyuki has been looking for. It's a pretty strong turn 3 here.
Yeah, off that turn 1 that didn't look like it was much going on. Looks like he's really bounced
2.
back from that. Yes, this is turn 2, and already he's got some stage 1 set up, which is pretty impressive, I'd say, in this format.
Yeah, especially with the way Gustavo has been drawing these first 2 turns.
Priming the Wisdom.
Just some bench management. Looks a lot nicer when Mareep's on the side.
Well, yeah, he's going to be the guy that you're bringing up a lot more.
Course. Efficient movements.
You also see Tag Call, one of the best cards for this deck, being able to search for a draw supporter that also gets you your Belelbas back. And you know what? It also gets Belelba as well.
Yeah, Cynthia and Caitlin and Belelba looking like they're the choices with that tag call. And you've got to think that Gustavo's sitting across thinking, oh, yes, now I know what's going on. I know all these cards, all these pieces are in play. I only saw a giraffe rig before, so wasn't quite so clear. But, yep, Belelba sort of, it's that clear indicator that you're playing against a deck that's looking to sort of mill you out or,
I haven't used
discard
Pokémon
cards
yet,
from your
right?
deck.
No.
Yeah, and Gustavo does have one thing going for him is that he's just going to be able to start attacking now. The more fire energy he attaches to that Victini V, the more damage he's going to do. To where he's just going to essentially knock out every single Pokemon Yasuyuki has. So he's really going to have to go for that sleep.
Yep, and so we see that that's exactly what Yasuyuki does. He retreats his Girafarig and goes into the Mareep and puts Gustavo to sleep. Now, does Gustavo have many ways to get around this sort of sleep effect?
Well, so he has 5 outs essentially, 4 switch, which we see in most decks nowadays, and then he has 1 escape board that he has access to, which allows you to retreat when you are asleep.
And of course, he can also flip 2 coins and hope that they're both heads. And
Yeah, that's a
wake
lot
up.
to ask for, though.
But that's what we're going to see here.
And see, there's tails. You just don't even need to flip the other one. You're like, oh man, okay.
Yeah, it's done, unfortunately.
I'm a little jet lagged, gonna sleep.
We've got to switch into the Vulpix, but then a quick retreat just to get a fire energy in the discard pile.
And this is where Yasuyuki is gonna have to play the time game here, where he's gonna have to mill Gustavo out before Gustavo's gonna be able to take these 6 prizes. He's gonna have to make sure he goes through all 4 switch, the escape board.
Looks like he's thinking about what's in his hand here, doing a few calculations. Looks like that Victini V is quite oppressive. And then we see a Lily's Pokédoll as well. I'm not sure that we've seen that yet across the course of this tournament yet.
Yeah, it's a super strong card reminiscent of Robo Substitute from sets prior, but it's a very strict upgrade where it does the same thing. When it's knocked out, your opponent does not take a prize card, but instead of discarding it, instead of like to retreat, you can actually put it on the bottom of your deck. So it's also another way to not deck out after a Belelba Bryson Man.
Yeah, pretty interesting. And then we see a Cynthia Caitlin where Yasuyuki is going to draw 3 cards off that, and I wonder if it's exactly what he's looking for. Does have access to Smooth Over as well, which I don't believe we've seen him play just yet. So that Smooth Over with Primate Wisdom, and there we go, right on cue. That is a combination he is able to use. Put 1 card to the top of his deck, and then with Primate Wisdom, he can effectively draw that card.
Yeah, eyeing down, looks like Mareep or Air Balloon. Both could be pretty good choices, but Air Balloon will allow him to retreat the Giraffe Rig into the Lily's Pokédoll this turn. But again, he's going to have to watch out to see if Gustavo can actually set up Ninetales, probably the biggest card in this matchup.
Yeah, we spoke about that Ninetales earlier with that 9 Temptations. Being able to effectively gust a Pokemon from the bench up to the active spot. Yasuyuki here playing quick ball. There's still basic Pokemon in his deck that he must be looking for. Set up a few extra pieces. Choosing to get rid of that Belelba and Bryson Man.
Yeah, and there's the Mareep that he was eyeing down earlier. Now has everything going for him that he wants. Hope Gustavo does not have access to another switch or flipping 2 heads.
As we discussed earlier, 4 switch and an escape board on the deck, so there are some outs available to him. That is Gustavo, to be able to get that Victini out of the active position. I find it pretty interesting to see a Charizard and Reshiram GX with so few Pokemon on the board and so few energy as well. It's very counter to its usual strategy. But there we see an Air Balloon coming down onto the Girafarig.
And now he has the option here. He can try to go for the Mareep, put him asleep with that Fluffy Pillow ability, or retreat into the Lily's Pokédoll and hope your opponent doesn't actually draw into the Ninetales here.
And it looks like he goes for the Pokédoll.
Oh, he puts it to the bottom.
Yeah, puts it back in his deck and swiftly promotes the Mareep and puts that Victini V
He's like,
to
psych,
sleep.
got ya.
So Gustavo here, it's going to have to find a switch, an escape board. He does need to flip to see if he does wake up.
There's
but he had the
another switch. Oh, man. And a Professor's Research here from Gustavo, drawing him 7 cards. That's exactly what he wants to see.
Discarding a few cards that he might not really need in this matchup. Something like that Mega Lopunny. He's not facing a deck that has many GX Pokemon.
Yeah,
Full hand to
0.
work with now. Yeah. Full hand to work with now, but it's the same tried and true strategy. Promote Vulpix, retreat for 1 energy, and take a prize with Victini V.
Yeah, and the fact that he didn't have to discard any excess switch, he's able to use them to get 2 knockouts straight away. It's going to put Yasuyuki on the back burner here. He's going to really have to try to combo some stuff together to get around this Victini V.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he's under quite a lot of pressure, Yasuyuki. He's going to smooth over again, looking at any card in his deck and putting it on the top. Quite nice synergy with that Lily's Pokédoll in some ways, able to put it to the bottom of your deck, but then just find it again and put it back to the top.
It's like a game of hide and seek.
Except you find them every time.
I didn't say it was a good game. Like,
A couple of different supporter options in his hand as well, Yasuyuki. So he's going to go for a Lieutenant Surge and then the Caitlyn Cynthia, discarding his Zacian V.
yeah, a couple of different supporter options. Why not just do all of them?
Yeah, with Lieutenant Surge strategy.
All right, there is the 3 off that, Cynthia and Caitlyn. And his hand size is just growing and growing, and that is the power of Intrepid Sword and all these combination of cards together. And if your opponent doesn't have access to reset stamps or Marnies or Judge, you're really just super oppressive.
So it looks like there that Yasuyuki put a Wobbuffet back on the top of his deck with Primate Wisdom and then decided to discard it with Bellelba and Bryson Man. Again, the power of that Primate Wisdom.
Yeah, it's
They'll end
pretty
his
good.
turn with an Intrepid Sword.
All right, now it's back on Gustavo. Does have a pretty good hand himself from that research the turn before.
Oh, finds the 9 Temptations, 9 Tails.
And this is where things are going to start getting a little dicey here for Yasuyuki, especially with the Fiery Flint and a couple fires in Gustavo's hand already. It plays 18 of those, so most of the time he's going to have
Do you
those
think
2
that's
fire
enough?
energy.
Do you think 18 is enough?
It's pretty good. Going back to the days of, 20 Pokemon, 20 trainers, 20 energy. We're getting there. We're close.
Oh, isn't that how you build decks now?
Yeah.
Thought that was standard. So it looks like an attachment goes to the Victini V, and we're using that 9 Temptations ability to bring up the Zacian V to the active position on Yasuyuki's side of the field.
Yeah, and this is where Gustavo really pulls ahead, gets those 2 prizes off this knockout here.
I think it's only been 3 or 4 turns, and he's already down to 2 prizes. This is a pretty dominant display from Gustavo.
Yeah, and starting with nothing, too, and it's just the power of Victini V to charge itself up, and then it's like, oh, this is all I need.
And we're going to see the power of Ninetales as well. We just saw it. Very, very powerful card that we were hyping up before. Now, what can Yasuyuki do here? He's leading with Lily's Pokédoll in the active position.
So he's going to have to try to combo together more Marie Slumbering Forest. It's really his only way to actually combat 9 Temptations. If you don't put your opponent's Pokemon to sleep and they don't have a way out of it, they're going to wreck through your entire board.
I'm not seeing any ways that he can actually search for basic Pokemon with certainty. There is a Great Ball there.
Smooth over.
But of course, when you smooth over, you can get anything.
It's not bad. Not bad.
He's looking through his deck. I don't actually see any Mareeps left in there.
Yeah, eyeing down that Ordinary Rod, one of the new cards to come out of Sword and Shield, being able to put back 2 Pokemon and or 2 basic energy as well from your discard into your deck. One of the few things we've been missing for a while is some nice recovery.
Looks like he's putting a Macago onto the top of the deck. Seems to be his choice with that smooth over. See what kind of strategy that Yasuyuki's going for here.
Well, he does have a couple Slugma, the Ditto in his hand.
But is it too little, too late? That's the only thing. Yes, you can get as many cards as you want to the top of your deck. But, if they're not achieving knockouts, if they're not disrupting the opponent in the way that you want them to, the way that your deck's designed to.
Oh, cannot bench that Macargo.
Got another slug, that's okay.
Yeah, but again, like you said, this is looking very bad here for Yasuyuki. Again, his deck is not one that's going to take prizes, so the prize count doesn't really matter for him, even though it's 2 to 6. But Gustavo's taken 4, and it's been 3 turns.
Yeah. Then it comes down to Slumbering Forest. But he definitely wants to see a Mareep.
4 turns, my mistake. Yeah, Mareep's going to be the biggest point here.
He has a Quick Ball to be able to find it, but no Mareeps in deck.
Well, here we go. Lieutenant Surge allowing 2 more supporters for the turn. It's going to have to try to just hope to mill him out here.
Does look like Gustavo has quite a large deck. Still, lots of cards in there.
Well, that's the benefit of, not having anything turn
Yeah,
1.
yeah.
You don't really have to play anything.
not playing down Pokemon, not accelerating energy. It's actually quite a good strategy.
All right, here is the last supporter for the turn, and Ordinary Rod gets discarded.
Switch gets discarded on Gustavo Wada's side.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Which, if there was a Mareep in play, I'd say that was quite a significant card to be discarded, but looks like Yasuyuki's going to pal pad back in Bell Elber and Bryson Man, 2 of them. Hope to find those and continue that mill strategy against Gustavo. Puts back in a couple more supporters as well. That Lieutenant Surge.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game plan that Yasuyuki really needs to try for. It's what his deck is built to do, and it's just Lieutenant Surge, Belova and Bryson Man, Belova and Bryson Man. Next turn, I'm going to Lieutenant Surge, Belova and Bryson Man, Belova, Bryson Man. But it just might be too little too late. Gustavo is taking a prize this turn, taking a prize next turn, as long as he has 4 fire energy, essentially.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. We're going to have to see in his hand whether he has access to those fire energy, if he's able to get off that 9 Temptations ability each time.
For what I saw last turn, he did the Fiery Flint, and then he also had 2 in his hand as well, so it's stocked full. Ooh, we even have the Welder with that Victini Prism Star.
Drawing 3 cards here. Seeing most of his deck, he's not worried about mill. He's just going to continue to draw.
Yeah. You mill all my fire, I'll just shuffle them back in with Victini.
But it does mean he only has 1 fire energy in his hand.
Oh, that
currently.
is true.
But here we see he's going to retreat the Victini V and send in a different Victini, which is the Victini Prism Star. Looks like he's going to be using that Infinity attack.
Yeah, this is an interesting play from Gustavo. He's kind of playing it safe. He's seeing that his opponent has kind of got their deck down low to where they're just going to Belova and Bryson Man every turn. And depending on how small his deck was, you're like, okay, well, I saw that Wobbuffet in the discard that shuts off Prism Stars from attacking. If he gets that in play, I can't even attack with Victini Prism. I'm running out of energy here. Might as well guarantee that I'm going to have energy for the rest of the game to 9 Temptations and just seal it from there.
Yeah, it's quite a calculated, sort of slower game plan that ultimately could just be the difference between him winning and losing here.
Ooh, here's the Ordinary Rod from Yasuyuki here. It's very big.
Yeah, looks like he's choosing to go with the Wobbuffet, actually. So Wobbuffet and 2 fire energy. Deciding against perhaps selecting those Mareeps. Well, there's one Mareep. They get shuffled back into the deck.
I think he has a few more things to do. Has access to Smooth Over, Pokemon Communication, and the Quick Ball, so plenty of options here for Yasuyuki.
He will be able to find that Mareep, and he will be able to retreat with that air balloon on the Girafarig. But is it enough, Jeremy? Is it enough to bring out a Mareep at this point in the game and hope that the opponent stays asleep?
There's 3 switch down, so that could be the thing that Yasuyuki's just like, all right, if I have those 3 switch down, I'm going to play another Belova and Bryson Man, and if I mill another switch, then you have no more switch. Maybe I mill an Escape Board as well, and sometimes you can just lock your opponent out if they don't have any resources left.
Yeah, so what seemed like a very dominating start from Gustavo has now potentially swung back to Yasuyuki's favor. He's definitely preferenced that Wobbuffet, finding that Wobbuffet.
I'm coming back.
Well, the Wobbuffet does essentially do some of the same thing where, yeah, your active Pokemon can't attack because it's that Prism Star. Kind of force him to waste more energy, retreat to the Victini V on the bench.
Yeah, the question is whether Gustavo can actually find all the energy he needs to be able to close out this game. Or if Yasuyuki can disrupt him, stall him enough, mill enough cards to get the victory. He does find the Mareep off that Great Ball, looking at the top 7 cards of the deck and selecting 1 Pokemon. And luckily enough, he found Mareep.
Yeah, a little bit sketchy there because there's the 1 Mareep, but I think he only had like 10, 11 cards in the deck, so pretty good odds of finding it.
Yeah, roll of the dice there, but...
All right, so this is kind of another catch-all here. It's like, okay, I got the Wobbuffet to mean you can't attack, but now I have the Mareep to put you to sleep. So get out of both.
Yeah, so it's really relying on Gustavo to hit that double heads on Slumbering Forest for the sleep check, but also finding that switch or burning energy to manually retreat.
Well, he manually retreated with the air balloon giraffe.
Oh, on Gustavo's side to
Oh,
retrieve the
Gustavo,
Victini,
yeah.
Again, if he just finds fire energy though, perhaps he can just attack something on the bench. He can bring up the Wobbuffet, attack that with Victini. Wobbuffet's effect only coming into play when it's on the bench, so
Primate wisdom.
lots of deck management going on by Yasuyuki here. He's going to play a Bell Elbow, and he actually hits a few energy cards on the side of Gustavo.
Well, pretty good odds to hit when half of his deck is fire energy now, but seeing 3 of them hit the bin is pretty good to see here for Yasuyuki.
Yeah, and it's sort of all part of his strategy to win. He's going to want to see more of those fire energy hitting the discard pile from those Bell Elbow and Bryson Mans. And actually, Gustavo's Victini stays asleep, so that's one part of Yasuyuki's plan that's coming to fruition here.
Step 1, complete.
I feel like there's quite a few steps in those steps, though.
It's a 100-step process to win the game, but
well,
he's
you
going to try to
start
get
at step
there.
1, and then goes the Slumbering Forest. So it's actually been countered by Gustavo's giant hearth there.
To be fair, it did its job.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
It was able to keep the Victini asleep for at least 1 turn. And granted, you still have to roll heads just for 1 dice instead now.
And you can see Gustavo, he just had a little count of how many cards were actually in his deck. Just thinking, oh, how many turns do I have left to be able to achieve my win condition? It looks like he's going to use 9 Temptations there.
Bringing
Playing
up
2 fire to bring up Macargo.
Yeah, so this has, I believe, 3 retreat. So Air Balloon won't be enough. He's going to have to find Air Balloon in combination with another energy.
Now Yasuyuki's turn to count Gustavo's deck. Just thinking, what do I need to do to be able to achieve the win here? And it looks like there's quite a few cards in there. Not enough for something like a Macargo GX to seal the win on this turn if he was able to achieve that GX move.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. Especially when playing against a mill deck like this, where they're going to be going Blubba and Bryson Man, mill 3. But then they're going to have turns where they're going to go Lieutenant Surge, double Blubba and Bryson Man, mill 6. He actually has access to mill 11 cards in 1 turn with the Surge, 2 Blelbas, and a Macargo GX attack.
Yeah, that's more than 1/6 of a deck.
Yeah.
So that's quite a lot of cards. It's something that I'm sure Gustavo is very aware of happening as well. Looks like Yasuyuki, he's going to continue to try to execute that game plan. Palpad gets back 2 of those Bell Elbow and Bryson Mans back into his deck so he can continue to discard Gustavo's deck and hopefully get it down to the state where he can actually achieve that, big turn of discarding all his cards. It looks like it was a Caitlyn and Cynthia and a Bell Elbow and Bryson Man. Got shuffled back into the deck.
Looking to use Smooth Over, but it's in the active. Don't worry, you're still able to use it. Eyeing down that Cynthia and Caitlyn tag team supporter.
It's just another way, right, to get more supporters back into the deck, but also to draw cards as well.
Yeah.
So.
And it's probably the best way. He was eyeing down the Lieutenant Surge with the Palpad, but the Cynthia and Caitlyn will get you more cards and get the Lieutenant Surge in your hand for next turn. And you even see that Macargo GX in Yasuyuki's hand as well. He's really hoping to set up a big turn next turn.
Looks like he discards the Great Ball, recognizing that there may not be too many other Pokemon that he's looking for in deck at this stage of the game. Draws those 3 cards.
And he did find an energy as well, so he does have the option to actually retreat the Macargo here in the active, but he's going to need that energy for the GX attack next turn if he wants to even try to attempt that.
And you've got to wonder how many energy cards he has left as well, because this deck typically doesn't play that many.
Well, he did Ordinary Rod 2 back, so he
there are at least
has,
2.
Yeah, and one thing that's great of note is does have access to Giant Hearth in play, opted not to use it.
Looks like it's just a pass, so that Macargo is stuck in the active position, and straight away Gustavo gets out those 2 fire energy with Giant Hearth and says, all right, now I can probably just knock out whichever Pokemon I'm looking for. It sounded Jirachi there.
2 fire energy in hand for Gustavo as well. It'll be interesting to see how many. So there's at least 5 in the discard, right? The 3 from the Blelba. Oh no, so there's more. Yeah, so this is a great knockout. Bringing up the Wobbuffet into the active spot, shuts off its ability, and then the Victini Prism Star is able to attack and take the knockout. Gustavo's now at 1 prize left.
Yeah, just needs one more prize to take game one of this round 3, and it looks like you know, never want to say 100% certainty, but it looks like it's a pretty good bet that he's going to be able to take that last knockout. What it may come down to is Yasuyuki's Mareep putting the Victini to sleep and then saying, all right, can you find that switch or not? Or can I discard cards from your deck faster than you can find that switch? And there we go. So it looks like he's putting the Victini to sleep, of course. Mareep, it's a great ability when it's in the active position. It can just put the opponent to sleep and it doesn't end your turn or require any other, you know, discarding of cards or anything like that.
So this is the interesting part here too, is with the way Yasuyuki's hand is shaped right now, I don't know if he's going to be able to get the Lily's Pokédoll into the active spot to put down onto the bottom of the deck.
So might we see a...
He might have to be forced to retreat the Mareep in the active... Oh, but he still does have the air balloon. Okay. Yeah, that was the biggest, because he needs the energy attachment for the Macargo GX, but also to retreat as well. So
Yeah,
the
it's a
air
little bit
balloon
tricky.
coming in big.
Then we find the Dole, of course. Put straight down onto the bench.
All right, so he actually does have the mill 11 this turn if he chooses to. Gets the Lily's Pokédoll. He's going to Surge, Belelba.
Oh, looks like it's a pass. It's a
Must
pass
not
from
have enough.
Yasuyuki. And then
And-
he actually flips heads, so
no.
the Victini is awake.
All right, so this is the big moment. 2 fire energy, do you have it? And of course, that giant hearth in play means yes. And Gustavo will be able to take game 1 here. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty exciting. And
25 minutes too.
Yeah, in what I would say was like a very odd start to the game, that's for sure. Like, it's not what we expected to see from both players. I believe Yasuyuki just started with Girafarig and then Lucky Slugma. And on the side of Gustavo, maybe that was his game plan, not to play too many cards down, maybe just to play that Victini V and make sure he can get a Ninetales going as well.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that he had going for him was that his opening hand or his opening draws essentially had 2 switch for him.
Yeah.
Being able to keep the pressure going and take those knockouts and forcing his opponent to actually like waste resources to get Mareep's back.
Yeah, and another thing, if you've got Switch in your hand and your opponent's playing Belelba Bryson, well, they're safe. They're actually safe. They're not in the deck. So, yeah, Switch definitely coming in clutch in that match. In that game 1, rather, sorry. We do actually have potentially 2 more games to see of this matchup, and it will be interesting to see how the players approach this, whether they're going to approach it differently or if, you know, on Gustavo's side, if he's thinking, oh, that was actually a great strategy for me. Just set up 1 Ninetales, 1 attacker that can just continuously attack.
Yeah, and there's no energy disruption from Yasuyuki's side, so all the energy that's going to be going on the Victini V or whatever attacker that Gustavo decides to start with is really safe. So you're going to prioritize your Switch, your Skateboard, and your Ninetales. But meanwhile, Yasuyuki, he's kind of on the back foot where his best card, generally, is Zacian V. That's how he's going to build up that giant hand size and get his consistency engine going. But when his opponent's able to just discard 2 fire energy, bring up the Zacian, and take a knockout very easily, then that's essentially giving up 2 turns of your strategy.
Yeah, really tricky. I mean, that Intrepid Sword, this kind of deck relies on that so much to just fill your hand sides, get all the pieces you need to be able to continuously Belelba and Bryson man, continuously, you know, apply that pressure, keep the opponent asleep, get the smooth over Macargo out, all those kinds of things. And I think Gustavo eliminated that Pokemon, you know, knocked it out pretty quickly. So
Yeah,
that option was off the table.
I think like turn 4, it was after 2 knockouts from 2 straight switches. It's all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, I'm now down to 2 prizes. Good luck.
Yeah, very, very oppressive. So here we can see the prizes of Gustavo there. He's actually prized that Victini Prism Star, of course being one of those cards that you can only play 1 of in your deck.
Yeah, and without the Victini Prism, I think Yasuyuki actually won that game 1.
Yeah.
Shuffled in upwards to 10 fire energy, and we saw there he had the mill 11 that last turn, but there was just too many cards in Gustavo's deck. It could have happened.
Yeah, thanks to that Victini. So, you know, Yasuyuki might have a little bit of an advantage in this game here. So looking at his prizes,
Nothing too bad.
Yeah, not seeing anything that's too game-changing being priced there. Potentially Air Balloon if he maybe starts with a Pokemon that, again, he doesn't want to start with, but he plays a few different copies of all these Pokemon. And speaking of which, that is probably a Pokemon ordinarily you wouldn't want to start with. Wobbuffet.
No, yeah, it is really good in this matchup, but it's kind of awkward when you start Wobbuffet. But having the Ditto Prism, it's actually the best thing for it.
Yeah.
Because you can actually evolve it.
Yeah.
Wobbuffet is shut off in the active with that shady tail.
Yeah, this is one of those niche situations, I think. So much better start from Yasuyuki this game. He's actually already started with a quick ball, and it means he's able to get out that Zacian V and put that down onto the bench. So a few more Pokemon we're seeing this time. Does have to get rid of that Slumbering Forest, though, with that quick ball.
Yeah, that's one thing we actually didn't really see. Gustavo was going so fast with these knockouts that Yasuyuki didn't have any time to actually set up resource management or Oranguru and try to get a lot of his resources rolling and get like his deck going.
So this deck, interestingly, a couple of different Orangurus. So one with that Primate Wisdom and one with the resource management attack. Both very powerful and, you know, kind of synergistic in some ways. You know, they manipulate your deck, they put cards back in, they trade different cards. So
yeah, well, I think you were saying it before. This has to be one of the favorite Pokemon from just the people who make cards in general, because it seems like almost every Oranguru that they've released has been really good.
Oh, really interesting for Yasuyuki there. He Intrepid sorted, but drew 2 Pal Pads and an Ordinary Rod. None of those cards help you right now when you haven't put in really that many cards into your discard pile that you want to get back into your hand or into your deck. So none of those are going to draw him cards next turn. On the side of Gustavo, an interesting choice for a Welder.
Yeah. Welder attaching to the Detonate, it's really like, oh, well, I don't really have much of anything else. But one thing you also, like some of these decks play is Heatran GX. Being able to bring it to the active, move the fire to it, and it's essentially you just Welder to that. And that's what we see him eyeing down with that quick ball here. Probably another really good attacker in this matchup.
So we sort of asked, oh, what does Gustavo want to start with this game? And sort of like, sometimes you don't get to choose.
Yeah.
It looks like the Dedenne was just put in the active spot by no choice of Gustavo. There's a switch.
And yeah, we're going to see a turn 1 knockout here. Heatran GX putting in a ton of work in combination with Welder.
So it is a knockout, but it is also 1 switch down.
That is true, yeah.
It looks like Yasuyuki's going to put in a Ditto Prism Star into the active position now.
Now, one thing Yasuyuki didn't actually get to have in play was some Slugmas. The Ditto Prism able to evolve into Magcargo if he wants to, but he's really going to... Oh, and speak of it, and it shall appear. Slugma now hits the board.
But there's not a lot else going on in Yasuyuki's hand. I can't really see many options to draw. I think it was actually the Primate Wisdom that was his option to draw a card. A couple of Palpad, a reset stand. Yeah, it looks like he just has to Intrepid Sword.
A little awkward here. Not having access to Smooth Over means his engine isn't really in play.
And Gustavo...
He's really digging for the Vulpix.
Similarly to last game, very similar strategy. Play down 1 attacking Pokemon and set up that Ninetales. It looks like he found that Vulpix off that Pokemon communication. Putting 1 Pokemon back and collecting any Pokemon from your deck that you want to. Vulpix can go straight down to the bench, and it's ready next turn to evolve into a Ninetales.
Yeah, all the hype around Quick Ball being one of the best searches we have now. Granted, Gustavo still plays for Quick Ball, but Pokemon Communication is one of those catch-all where you're able to get those basics, but you're able to get that Ninetales as well. Something like Evolution Incense, kind of too linear for this deck.
Yeah. Not many options in Yasuyuki's hand here. Lots of disruption. Things like Bellelba and Bryson. Reset stand.
I think we're going to need to see this Great Ball hit a Magcargo to try to smooth over something with Primate Wisdom. Oh, and there it
does
is.
Find it.
All right, so this kind of opens up Yasuyuki's hand a little bit better, but granted, he's still on the back foot, especially staring down that Vulpix that could just become a Ninetales, and Nine Temptations just start wrecking his board.
It's interesting to see what he's going to smooth over here. What does he think his best option is to deal with this Heatran that's bearing down upon him with all this energy? Able to effectively get knockouts on anything on his board, especially that, Zacian V being weak to fire.
Yeah, there's a couple options that you can go for. If you're kind of like, I need a little bit more time, go for Lily's Pokédoll. You can also try to get that Slumbering Forest Mareep kind of set up, but I don't really know if his hand is really that good for it. Like you said, there's a lot of like retroactive stuff in his hand.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because the two cards that he's just holding from his deck are Lily's Pokédoll and Mareep. So he's obviously having the same train of thought that you're having there.
I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
It's able to get that card straight away with Oranguru's Primate Wisdom, getting his strategy a little bit online. It's interesting how long Yasuyuki's turns take. He's got so many pieces he has to piece together, and comparatively, Gustavo's just thinking, yep, attach, sometimes switch, get a knockout.
Attach. Can I find Ninetales this turn? No? All right, attack.
Actually, Yasuyuki went for the Lily's Pokédoll. He's opting for that, to put that in the active position and deny Gustavo a prize there.
Yeah, well, again, this is kind of the safest route right now, as long as Gustavo doesn't have Ninetales.
It could be, oh, didn't hit Ninetales.
Discarding a Welder, though, that's 3 down. But granted, I think the damage has already been done. Also, we saw Gustavo pick up that Victini Prism from the prizes.
Yeah, very relevant in case too many fire energies are discarded on the side of Yasuyuki.
And you see Yasuyuki actually pull the Ordinary Rod to the front of his hand. Definitely going to be eyeing down that Wobbuffet again.
Gustavo here gets to see most of his deck.
Oh,
Many different pieces.
That Professor's Research did not really hit what Gustavo wanted. No Ninetales in sight. Does have a couple fire energy here, but here's just an attack. Take down the Lily's Pokédoll, and Yasuyuki escaped that turn.
Yeah, lots of good cards in there, but not exactly what Gustavo was looking for. Certainly needed that Ninetales. And we were talking about that Pokemon communication earlier. Wasn't able to find something like that to be able to find it. Opens the window a little bit for Yasuyuki to continue his game plan.
Yeah, well, he has more cards to, or access to more cards now because of the Intrepid Sword last turn. Already got the one card that you needed from Smooth over the turn before, so I think we might start seeing Mareep, maybe Slumbering Forest come into play this turn. You also could eye down maybe another Slugma, just because Macargo is a very big target to try to disrupt Yasuyuki from Gustavo's side.
Yeah, it does look like he goes for that Mareep with the Quick Ball there, discarding a Fire Energy, which is somewhat interesting given how few Fire Energy are actually in Yasuyuki's deck. But like you said, he does play that Ordinary Rod.
It's kind of a free discard right now, especially if he prioritizes that Wobbuffet to combat this Victini Prisms.
And there we are. Straight away, the Ordinary Rod comes down. He's getting back that Wobbuffet. That was the card that you were pointing at earlier. That's the one that's going to really stop Gustavo's Victini, prevent it from attacking. And this is somewhat the gameplay that Yasuyuki has to go for now.
All right, so here's the Smooth over. Kind of brushed past the Slumbering Force. Might be eyeing down that Wobbuffet right now. And here we go.
Straight away, pretty rapidly, searches his deck for that one. Going to put it right to the top. It's a target for Primate Wisdom. So there we go. That Wobbuffet
Let's go back. Primate Wisdom.
being down on the bench, it's going to nullify that Victini Prism Star. Really just kind of takes an attacker away from Gustavo in that case.
Yeah, but this is the awkward spot. You're relying on this Mareep to put the Heat Ran to sleep, but Gustavo only has to flip one coin. If he gets a heads here, Yasuyuki's put very far behind.
I still need
Yeah, no Slumbering Forest in sight. Turn is not ended, so we have a Bell Bell and a Bryson Man.
Yes!
Was that double Ninetales off the mill?
Yasuyuki's just going to double check. It was,
Oh,
wow.
man. I heard Yasuyuki go, yes, yes. So, man, that is huge.
That is massive.
Gustavo has been drawing cards each turn to try to find those Ninetales. He even played a Professor's Research the turn before to draw 7 new cards, did not hit anything to even search for it. And then they were just both on top of the deck.
This completely changes the momentum of the game. Also, the Heatran GX, it just failed its sleep flip. So it, unless Gustavo can find some kind of switching effects, multiple switching effects, in fact, to get that Heatran GX back into the active position, this might be the spot that Yasuyuki was aiming for. It's like Gustavo does have a switch, so he pops that Victini Prism Star into the active position.
But again, it cannot attack thanks to Shady Tail here.
Now, we're going to see that card that we saw last game, Victini V, coming down onto the field.
Man, I still cannot believe that double Ninetales mill. That means Gustavo does not have access to Ninetales for the entire game. There is no Pokemon recovery in his deck to get that back. And that means Yasuyuki can kind of play a little safer now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the chances were that they'd hit those exact 2 cards out of the 3 that were being discarded, but pretty unfortunate for Gustavo, pretty lucky for Yasuyuki in that case.
Yeah, and that's what you have to see in some of these matchups where, like, oh man, they have a card that just destroys me, but I can get lucky. And that's what you see Yasuyuki here, just gets insanely lucky. Man, milling both Ninetales in this matchup has to be the dream.
It's completely changed the course of this game, I would say.
Yeah, now we're thinking about 10 minutes left. Yasuyuki is actually looking to probably win this game if everything goes right. And Gustavo, like, I don't even know if they're going to be able to make a time for a game 3.
Yeah, I mean, is there a way that Gustavo can potentially keep himself in the game for 10 minutes?
It depends. If Yasuyuki's able to chain a few Lily's Pokédolls here, Gustavo does not play Pokemon Catcher, Custom Catcher. He relies on that Ninetales and that 9 Temptations.
And this is part of the strategy Yasuyuki needs. He's played that Bellelba and Bryson. He's getting rid of more cards from Gustavo's deck, so that is definitely the supporter he wants to be playing for turn.
Oh, man, this is insane. What a turn of events for this game.
Very, very lucky. All calculated, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, on turn 5, I'm going to mill both Ninetales, leave you with basically nothing. And he thought that as they were shuffling up after game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gustavo here, you know, he's got that Heatran. It's able to attack every single turn, able to knock out anything on Yasuyuki's side of the board. But is it enough? Is it enough? Will he be able to get through enough Lily's Pokédolls here?
Yeah, you would think with Gustavo at 3 prizes, essentially a lot of these mill decks where, like, they kind of give up prizes because it's just an extra turn. And Yasuyuki might have to do that one turn with the resource management from Oranguru. But there's a lot of times where you just got Lily's Pokédoll, you got Mareep to put him asleep, and there's just some times where you're not going to get an attack off, and that's just even another turn. And this is an aggressive mill. It's not the mill where we saw round 1 where you play 2 Bellelba, but mostly it's just like, I'm going to set up my board to be kind of the ultimate defense. This is like, I'm going with the ultimate attack offense.
Yeah, I'll even discard my own cards if I have
Yeah.
to. That's fine by me. So it looks like Yasuyuki, he's got that Mareep back in the active spot. Again, he's forcing Gustavo to find that switch, find a way out of that sleep. You know, flip heads on the sleep check in between turns. So really, this is a very different style of game to the one that we saw in the first game where Gustavo just ran away with it.
Yeah, the biggest thing for Yasuyuki here is going to be time. Will he have enough time to actually mill Gustavo out and steal away this match with a tie?
Well, Yasuyuki's certainly hoping so. He's hoping that Gustavo is going to stay asleep in between turns. To see a tag call come down, which will be able to find him some of the tag team supporters that he runs, in that Caitlin and Cynthia, and Bella and Bryson. Didn't see one in deck though, so it looks like he's going to have to try to get those Bella Bryson mans back.
Yeah, so looking for the sleep flip here, most likely. Has gone through, I think, a couple Lily's Pokédolls so far.
Lieutenant Surge going to come down. Such a great card for this deck when, you know, you're always behind in prizes.
Yeah, so 2 supporters now, but we see the Cynthia and Caitlin first one. So his hand's pretty much set up to what he wants to do. We even see the Macargo GX with another Slugma.
Looks like he's discarding the Macargo GX though.
You got Ordinary Rod, it's fine.
Raw.
Speaking of.
Right on cue.
I've already tweeted.
Wants a few more cards there. Including one of those Lily Pokédolls. That's exactly what he wanted to see. To be able to get those out of his deck. Puts the Heatran to sleep.
Yeah, actually has the switch to switch into the Lily's Pokédoll as well. Kind of like, okay, I'm going to put you to sleep. If that doesn't work, well, you can't get around this anyway, so.
Yeah. Of course, it's just one extra step for Gustavo. He's got to wake up. He's got to get away around the Lily's Pokédoll, which we know he doesn't have because of that earlier amazing amazing discard that Yasuyuki was able to do, which is get rid of those Ninetales from Gustavo's deck, and that's a sleep.
Who needs Slumbering Forest when your opponent just flips tails anyway?
On the first flip. The Heatran stays asleep. And here we go, Yasuyuki's going to have a little count of Gustavo's deck. Just to see, you know, how far away am I from being able to achieve that big turn of discarding all the cards that I need from your deck. Pretty hard to see how many are left. Quite a few, though, I would say. Certainly not that key number, what was it, 11 that we needed to hit to be able to...
11 is the critical mass here. And you actually see the one escape board come down for Gustavo. It's just the 5th way he can get around this sleep.
Does allow him to retreat while he is asleep. And for 1 energy less, which is quite important.
Yeah, granted, although Heatran can charge himself back up if he makes it back to the active spot with his ability.
We've seen a few welder down, though, so getting those energy cards into play might be a little bit of a struggle for Gustavo at some point. Looks like he's just going to attack with Victini V, though, and take a knockout on that Lily's Pokédoll. Not collecting a prize, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, and the biggest thing here is the fact that Wobbuffet hit the board again after being knocked out like turn 2. Really shutting off that Victini Prism Star, which is a way to just, for Gustavo to, like, essentially he could shuffle back 16 cards if he really has everything.
Yeah. Looks like Yasuyuki here deciding what he's going to put at the top of his very thin deck. Really funny that in this aggressive mill strategy, you're actually discarding your own cards as well.
Oh yeah, you end up milling yourself more than your opponent. You're decking 2 players out. You deck yourself out first, then you deck your opponent out.
I haven't seen that Oranguru with resource management. Ah, there it is. Goes back on top of the deck. Decides to continue with that strategy of putting down the Lily's Pokédoll. And yet, this time we see a Slumbering Forest. Pretty big. It does mean that Gustavo needs to flip 2 coins now to try to wake up between turns.
And with that recycle energy going back to Yasuyuki's hand, every time he retreats, he has essentially the cards he needs to retreat every turn.
But like we discussed earlier, it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's all about whether Yasuyuki can discard all the cards from Gustavo's deck.
Yeah, under 4 minutes to go here in game 2 for the entire match. And we're still on Yasuyuki's turn.
He's finding all the pieces he needs now. So he's finding that Bellbella Bryson Man. He's got that Mareep down. He has a Lily's Pokédoll, Smooth Over, and Primate Wisdom happening. Everything he needs to be able to execute that strategy of milling his opponent's deck. The 2 Ninetales are now in the discard pile as well for Gustavo.
I still can't believe that. That's insane.
He's got to make the highlight reel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's 3 cards hit the discard pile for both players there with that Bellelba and Bryson Man.
And again, these aggressive mill decks play high counts of Palpad. 3 for Yasuyuki here, and it's just another way to, yeah, I'm going to keep hitting you with these Bellelba and Bryson Man, and I'm going to eventually deck you out, and it's going to be a lot faster than you think.
Yeah, I mean, it has a dual purpose, right? You can get those supporters back, but you can also put cards back in your deck so you don't deck yourself out. So, very clever play there. And there goes another Palpad, speaking of which.
This turn needs to hurry up, though, if Yasuyuki wants to actually take the win here, because one thing to note as well, since his game plan is to mill your opponent out, they actually need to draw a card for their turn to lose the game. So one thing that could come up is time's called. You have turn 0 and then 1, 2, 3. If Yasuyuki is turn 3 and actually mills Gustavo out to 0 cards, he'd actually lose because Gustavo doesn't have another turn to draw a card.
Yeah, it's one of those things that seems really niche, but it actually comes up quite often. Seems to be some discussion about the Palpad being played here. Just trying to deliberate.
I think they're just, because he played 2 Palpads, so there's 4, and then he had 1 card in his deck. So they're just trying to keep the count straight.
Yeah, very, very thin deck there. This is usually sort of thing you would say, oh, that's their hand.
Yeah.
But no, in this case, it is actually Yasuyuki's deck.
So it looks like there's approximately 18 cards left in Gustavo's deck before this turn started.
Okay. We're still not at that magical number 11.
All right, well, here we go.
Oh,
1 minute
tails.
left.
The Victini V stays asleep. Just another element that Gustavo has to contend with here.
And now this depends too. How long does Gustavo take for his turn here?
Plays down the giant hearth. Could be quite crucial later on if he wants to ensure that his Pokemon are going to wake up between turns, if that Mareep is going to continuously put them to sleep. He has a look through his whole deck. He has to make the decision. Is he actually going to take any cards out of that deck?
No, and okay, this is the biggest thing. If Gustavo is turn 0, it lowers Yasuyuki's chances of winning astronomically. Essentially, Gustavo needs to pass and Yasuyuki needs to draw a card to become turn 0.
And we're approaching that moment. There are 15 seconds.
And there's
But
the
he
roll.
does.
But remember, Yasuyuki needs to draw a card to start his turn here. He has 8 seconds to do it. Okay,
All right, all right.
turn 0, that's a little bit better. That means he'll have an extra turn for Gustavo to actually draw into a decked out deck.
Yeah, an extra opportunity. Gustavo's going to draw for turn 1 and draw for turn 3 as well. So you have to think here, what's his best strategy going to be? Of course, he's going to want to continuously put that Mareep, put the Victini V to sleep.
Well, so the Victini, yeah, it woke up last turn, so it's very important, but you also don't really care too much. Now you're just like, I need to get my mill plan right now. It's going to be, I'm going to Lieutenant Surge, Belelba, and Bryson Man twice this turn.
Well, here we go. Here's the Lieutenant Surge, and does he have 2 Belelba and Bryson Mans to play down as well to really discard as many cards as can from Gustavo's deck?
And then I think we're going to see Lily's Pokédoll go back under the deck, so it's going to be the 1 card left in Yasuyuki's deck. He's going to promote something that can free retreat with Air Balloon, probably even the Mareep if he has it in his hand.
There's
And
another
then he's going to
Belelba.
have to resource management to try to set up a big turn. But, oh man, he needs the Magcargo GX as well.
And yeah, we don't see a Slugma down in play. It looks like there might be 10 or fewer cards left in Gustavo's deck.
Looks like 12 in deck right now.
Looks like 1 in Yasuyuki's deck.
Yeah. And that's the power of Lily's Pokédoll as well. It's really enabling these strategies.
And there we go. There's a Slugma, comes down onto the bench. Ordinary Rod going to put a couple of cards back into the deck.
But does Yasuyuki actually have enough Belelba and Bryson Man left to pull off a big mill next turn?
Well, we just saw 2 played this turn, so it's really going to come down to the wire, I think.
Yeah, Yasuyuki being turn 0 here is the biggest for him.
We're going to see that Magcargo, and it looks like a Fire Energy being eyed up as targets to put back into the deck. And as we talked about, that GX move so powerful, going to mill many cards from Gustavo's deck if he's able to attack with it.
Well, he'll mill many decks throughout the tournament too.
Yeah, that's true. He hopes so.
So I think only shuffling in the 2 cards. Remember, you can choose 1 or both from Ordinary Rod. So opting to get those Fire Energies so you can guarantee it for next turn with that GX attack.
Yeah, especially in combination with Smooth Over as well. Just in case there's that 1 card that you miss. Here we go. This is pretty intense, actually. I want to see if he's able to do it.
Turn 0, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and there's
They're just
clarifying.
deliberating
He's like,
who's,
all right, I have enough turns, but he needs to play it perfectly here. And trying to do that against one of the best players in the world right now, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, on an international championship stage too. So there goes a flip for check to see if the Victini V wakes up. It does wake up.
But that doesn't matter. Gustavo has 3 prizes. There's no way for him to actually really win the game, especially with no access to Ninetales.
But I think that's pretty big. He just palpated back in 2 supporter cards. That's
Oh,
2 more
no.
cards. 2 more cards that Yasuyuki has to discard.
I should bet into it, so.
And I don't know if he has enough resources left to do it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that might have just put
but I
Gustavo
can put it
over
back
the
one
edge
more.
here.
But I didn't.
Playing it down to Pokemon Communication.
Oh,
showing
look,
that-
another
Yeah,
card
but I
going back
didn't
in,
for
and
some reason. I
I
don't
think
know
we've
why.
reached a critical mass. Remember, Yasuyuki is only able to mill at max 11 cards in a turn.
And we just saw 3 cards go back in, which effectively means that's a Belelba and Bryson Man, an extra one that he's forced to play to discard those 3 cards. It's going to have a look now. It's going to count. I think I saw 9.
Yeah.
That might be enough.
Well, it depends if there's more Belelba hiding out in Yasuyuki's hand. But he just had to...
But this is the turn to do it. This is the final turn that Yasuyuki has to discard all the cards in Gustavo's deck. He has to do it on this turn.
I think he only has access to 8. The GX attack from Macargo GX and then 1 Belelba in his hand.
Don't tell me he's going to be 1 away.
Going to be 1 away. No Lieutenant Surge in sight for Yasuyuki, and not being able to use resource management at all for these 2 games has really put a lot of stress on Yasuyuki. You see him just deliberately, like, so close. The Palpad, in combination with the Pokemon communication, put Gustavo in the winner's seat for this match.
And you can see them both thinking about it. They're both in good spirits, though. They're both laughing. Thinking, was I 1 away? Was I 2 away? Am I able to do it?
Oh,
But yeah, I only see
man.
that one Bryson, Belelba and Bryson man in his hand.
There's no way for me to win.
It's actually
Yes.
gone for the
So-
Cynthia and Caitlin.
This is Yasuyuki's last turn here, and it is unfortunate to see, but man,
Draw 3.
almost pulled it off.
Very, very close. And I think that's as exciting as a mill deck gets, actually.
If only there was a little bit more time left on the clock, this game would have been for sure in Yasuyuki's favor. But Gustavo playing the clock well, playing the game well, and is able to overcome the mill of 2 Ninetales.
Just GX attack.
So it looks like we're going to go for the GX move here.
Burning
Of
Magma.
Macargo GX, which is usually the attack
sorry,
that's used
yeah.
at the end of the game by these kinds of decks to end the game and to win. But in this case, Gustavo had enough cards to outlast.
And Gustavo passes the turn. That is turn 3. Gustavo will take the victory here, 1-0.
Yeah, and he moves on to a 3-0 record, which is really respectable at this kind of international championships. Puts you in really good stead for the rest of the tournament, really. And I think a lot of people, it's the first few rounds that really get them nervous. Do you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
have no idea what they're going to come up against. They're not 100% sure that their deck's going to work on the day. But yeah, really, really interesting match, that one, because it was really back and forth, especially in that second game.
Yeah, well, you see how powerful Gustavo's deck was in game 1 thanks to that Ninetales. Nine Temptation is an insane ability in this format, and being able to use it against a deck where